Let's talk about the office cubicle. You know, that little gray box. For so many of us, it's just the symbol of the 9-to-5 grind, right? A place for stale coffee and endless emails. It's been the butt of jokes in movies and comics forever. But what if I told you the story of how we all ended up in those boxes is actually kind of wild and way more idealistic than you'd ever guess?
Yeah, I know. It sounds completely nuts, doesn't it? A box designed for freedom? But honestly, that was the original revolutionary idea behind one of the most hated pieces of furniture ever made. So let's get into it. Let's unpack how that incredible dream went so wrong.
Okay, so to get this, we have to go back in time. We're talking the mid-20th century. There's this small group of designers who truly believed they could use furniture to make the lives of office workers better, radically better.
See, back in the 60s, offices were pretty bleak. You either had these massive open rooms with endless rows of desks, super loud, zero privacy, or you had a maze of private offices where nobody could collaborate. A designer at Herman Miller, a guy named Robert Propst, looked at all this and just thought it was totally dehumanizing. He hated what he called the formula kind of sameness for everyone.
Now, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air. It started back in the 50s with a German concept called office landscape, which first broke up those boring, rigid rows. Then, by '64, Propst comes out with something called Action Office 1. It was cool, but it was really expensive and it didn't really take off. The real breakthrough, the one that changed absolutely everything, came in 1967 with Action Office 2.
And you can see his mission, right there in his own words. Propst wasn't trying to build a cage. He was trying to smash the cages that already existed. He imagined this dynamic workspace that you, the worker, could actually customize. Desks that could be raised or lowered. Panels for privacy that you could pin stuff to. The whole point was to be liberating.
But of course, as we all know, that's not quite how this story played out. That dream of a flexible, empowering office took a very sharp turn and somehow became the ultimate symbol of corporate conformity.
So listen to this, because this is the exact moment it all went sideways. It came down to a tiny but huge change in geometry. Propst's original design used walls set at a 120-degree angle. This created this really nice, open, organic feeling. You got your privacy, but you weren't totally boxed in. But then, companies figured out that if they just bent those walls to a sharp 90-degree angle, they could cram way more people onto a single floor. And just like that, the revolution wasn't about empowerment anymore. It was all about efficiency.
And here's the truly tragic part of the story. Towards the end of his life, Robert Propst himself just completely disowned what his creation had become. He saw his beautiful human-centered idea get twisted into what he called barren, wrath-hole places. Can you imagine? The inventor ended up hating his own invention.
And Propst wasn't the only one. His legendary colleague, George Nelson, this guy was one of the founders of American modernism. He saw where this was headed and just walked away from the whole project. He was even harsher, calling the corrupted version a system designed for corporate zombies, the walking dead. Ouch.
So, this whole messy history leads us straight to the dilemma we're still stuck in today. Because whether you're in a cubicle or a wide-open office, that core problem Propst was trying to fix is still right there with us. And that problem is privacy.
Okay, so it's super important to know there are really two different kinds of privacy at play here. First, you've got visual privacy. That's about controlling what you see, blocking out all the people walking by. But the real villain, the bigger problem for most of us, is acoustic privacy, or the lack of it. Study after study shows that hearing other people's conversations is the single most distracting sound in an office.
So, how do most companies try to fix this? Well, their brilliant solution is usually just build higher walls. In fact, these high-partition cubicles are the single most common office layout in the world. The logic seems simple enough, right? Higher walls should mean more privacy and less noise. But, does it actually work?
Well, the data says not really. A whopping 59% of people working in these high-walled cubicles are still unhappy with their sound privacy. And that just proves that putting up a barrier isn't some magic fix. The sound just sails right up and over the wall, creating that constant, annoying drone that makes it impossible to focus. And the total failure of the cubicle farm to solve this problem led us directly to the next huge trend in office design, and you guessed it, a whole new set of problems. You can see the pendulum swing almost perfectly here. We hated the isolation and the terrible lighting in cubicles, so what did we do?
We tore down all the walls and created open-plan offices. And sure, we got more collaboration and a lot more sunlight, but what did we trade for it? Constant noise, endless distractions, and pretty much zero privacy.
And that's really the core conflict of the modern office, isn't it? In our desperation to escape the cubicle farm, we ran headfirst into an environment where trying to do deep, focused work can feel completely impossible. It feels like neither extreme really gets it right.
So where do we possibly go from here? Well, ironically, the best answer might be to go right back to where this whole story started.
And this is the beautiful, kind of funny twist that brings our whole story full circle. After decades of fighting against the cubicle, the most innovative and forward-thinking office designs today, well, they're embracing the exact same principles that Robert Propst was championing with Action Office 2.
Just think about what the modern hybrid office is all about. It has different zones for different kinds of work, right? Modular furniture you can actually move around, a mix of private nooks and open collaborative spaces, and a huge focus on giving employees choice. Does any of that sound familiar? It's almost exactly what Propst was trying to do all those years ago.
So, maybe the cubicle itself was never the real enemy. Maybe the problem was that we completely misunderstood it. Perhaps the future of work isn't about destroying the walls, but about finally learning how to use them intelligently, flexibly, and humanely, just like they were always meant to be. What do you think?